Mhm. All right. Hello, everybody. Everybody. Lots of everybody this week. And welcome to this week's installment of Washington Post's video game news show that we do every week. It's called Washington Post Story Mode, or WaPo Stomo for short. Today, we are going to be talking about Activision Blizzard and Bobby Kotick and all of the various things that have unfolded around that this week. We are joined. To begin, I am Washington Post reporter Nathan Grayson, and this week we're joined by a very special guest, Bloomberg reporter Jason Schreier. Say hi, Jason.
Also, I'm here. I'm Shannon. Also
Shannon.
a video games reporter. But yeah, we also have Jason.
Yeah. Uh-oh. People are saying there's an echo. We're having what would appear to be technical troubles. Wonderful. Okay, cool. All right. Anyway, yes. So this week, joined by Jason Schreier and also Shannon Liao, both of whom have been doing excellent reporting on Activision Blizzard and everything involving Bobby Kotick. So very quickly, wow, everyone is still echoey apparently. It's not ideal. Can we fix that somehow?
I think I fixed it. That's everybody. Can you weigh in the chat? Is it good? Okay, cool. I just muted our other user. So cool. All right, let's move on.
Wonderful, fantastic. Anyway, so this week, just as a quick rundown, what ended up happening is the Wall Street Journal published a big report on Bobby Kotick and the various things that he has done during his time as Activision Blizzard CEO. Among them, he threatened to have an employee killed at one point. That was many years ago. He quickly retracted it, but it was still an incident that they alleged. He kept an executive from being fired after sexual harassment claims. He didn't tell the board of alleged rapes and misconduct. This report also revealed, for example, that Blizzard's Jen O'Neill was paid less than her male counterpart, Mike Ybarra, until she threatened to leave, among many other issues within the company. So, like, at this point, kind of, as a question to both of you, where does this kind of broadly put things with regard to Bobby Kotick's, I mean, just to answer the question on everyone's minds, the actual chances of anything happening to him? Because it seems like he still has institutional support. It seems like leadership and the board are still backing him. So, I mean, like, we have all of this stuff on the table, but where does it actually go, if anywhere?
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning that Bobby Kotick owns Activision. Like, this was his company from many years ago, and it's not like J. Allen Brack or the other people who were named in the suit who could just like be removed, and they don't. This is not their baby. But I'd like Jason to weigh in here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so my understanding is that Bobby owns like some like 0 point something percent of the company. But yes, it is his baby. He bought it 30 years ago in 1990. He bought it, saved it from bankruptcy, has run it since then with his partner Brian Kelly, who is currently the chairman of the board, and they are both on the board. Has kind of a club of old school guys who are running things with him. One might call it a boys club. That have been installed forever. So it always seemed unlikely. It always seemed up until Tuesday, up until 2 days ago, it seemed to every single industry observer that Bobby Kotick was too big to fail, that he had made the company too much money, that there was no way he could ever be ousted, and he would never be gone until he wanted to. And he's actually been grooming, from what I've heard, a successor, but this was going to be way down the road, handpicked sort of thing. Like, when I'm ready to retire, I'll pass the baton along to you. He was never planning on leaving. Things have changed, and even though the board said in a statement on Tuesday after the Wall Street Journal article hit that they would be standing by him, pressure is mounting, not just employee pressure, but also pressure from their external partners. PlayStation and Microsoft have both sent out internal emails just slamming Activision Blizzard, really going after them. I can only imagine the private conversations that these people are having right now. The threats, employee morale has tanked. It's at this point it's hard to see him lasting. But then again, I was at a company with one of the people on this call where 97% of the editorial staff voted to oust the CEO, that the CEO was so incompetent that he couldn't be doing his job, and then nothing happened. Then again, that wasn't a publicly traded company. Stakes are a little bit different. The kind of mechanisms in place are a little bit different. But capitalistic countries in our late stage capitalism, or sorry, companies in our late stage capitalism have a tendency to do counterintuitive things, or things that just value profits above all else. And I guess the big question for the board right now is keeping him around. He's made so much money for us. We're all good friends of this guy. Is keeping him around worth the PR and morale hits that we're taking? And is he still in a position where he can continue making us absurd amounts of money going forward? And that's the question they're going to be asking themselves right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, let's talk about the pressure that he's kind of facing a little bit. Because, yeah, the things kind of unfolded pretty quickly after the Wall Street Journal published their report. One of the big things is there was an employee walkout that was attended by, I think, at least 150 people, if not more. There was also today the petition that called for his resignation that was signed by over 500 employees. But when we're talking companies, especially ones that have been run like Activision Blizzard, where there was obviously a lot of internal toxicity that disregarded the well-being of employees. Like, does that have much of an impact on the decision making, or is that more of like a public-facing maneuver that gets the public on their side, and then that sort of ends up impacting the company further down the line in terms of perception, and then maybe what shareholders feel and think?
Yeah, it's over 1,000 signatures on that
Wow.
petition now. But yeah, those are the same employees who walked out, right? And this is their second walkout in a couple of months. But yeah, I think that the employees are at least pressuring management. The main concern from them is just, these are the people working on the games. If they have to leave, then if they leave because the environment's not great, then who's going to replace them, and then who's going to make the games from now? But yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's kind of this perception within the video game industry that most workers are replaceable, and that's one of the reasons that we've seen so many people get mistreated over the years. There's a way bigger supply of potential video game workers out there than there is demand for it. Um, that said, we've never seen a situation quite like this, and we've never seen game developers organize in the way that they have here. We've kind of seen like bits and pieces, like little movements here and there over the past couple of years, especially. But we've never seen people really organize on this level, and it seems like we're pretty close to them saying to the people at Activision Blizzard, and specifically at Blizzard, saying, "Hey, we're gonna unionize. We're gonna start fighting for ourselves." And that isn't a panacea. Unions can't just like solve all these problems. Unions can't force out a CEO or anything like that. But it could scare the board. It could scare upper management. It could scare shareholders. We could start seeing that pressure get put on the company in other ways. So yeah, there's definitely some potential effort there. Certainly on the scale of like action, I think the most scary for a company like Activision is Jim Ryan from PlayStation and Phil Spencer from Xbox sending out these scathing criticisms. That's the scariest. But I think somewhere in the middle, somewhere a little below that, is the threat of a potential employee union and what that could do to the business. Because a union could say, "Hey, we're going on strike until X demand is met. Hey, we are not going to make this game that you are relying on for next year until our demands are met." So
Mhm.
there is potential for a threat to the board's shares, the board's profit. There.
Right. Well, yeah, and I mean, I would say, especially given the current state of things at Activision Blizzard, given how much they've already had to delay major games like Overwatch and Diablo, they would be especially vulnerable to like a strike action of that sort. That if developers were like, oh yeah, in addition to what you've already had to deal with because of, the realities of COVID and whatever, like also we're going to, do a work strike, that would be a credible threat.
Yeah, and especially at a company like Activision, which has so few games,
Mhm.
they rely on their big tentpole releases, Call of Duty every year, the big Blizzard games every couple of years, and there are something like 8,000 people working at Blizzard, I believe. unless I'm misremembering the number. Thousands of people work at Blizzard, and all of those, all of that burn is dependent on these billion-dollar products in Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2 coming out, and making some of that money back or helping generate revenue in the future. So yes, in that sense, the workers have some power.
Yeah. So in chat, player slot available just raised a good question, which is, are there enough employees willing to unionize? Am I wrong in thinking that the number is low, with just a few hundred people attending a walkout when they have over 9,500 employees in total?
So I've been getting like messages from employees across the country, not just from Ivern, Irvine, California, the campus where Blizzard, where a lot of these Blizzard employees walked out. I think that like there's a lot of people in different studios that are working remotely were just stopping work from their homes, so they're not visibly in front of the campus that you can take a photo of them. So there is, a collective action there, and maybe beyond that, of course, there's also anti-union sentiment among some employees as well. And one of the things I wanted to mention, as you were talking about, maybe employees can stop producing a game. I think people are also afraid of being sued. If they hurt the company's financial bottom line, they are afraid that the company would take legal action against them. So I haven't seen like explicit action around like, oh, let's boycott Call of Duty, Vanguard work for a bit, but maybe in the future.
Yeah, yeah, they would definitely need to, in order to do that, probably be like an actual union entity as opposed to what they are now, right? Or at least to do that in a way where they had like legal protections.
Yeah,
Right.
so it's gonna depend on the teams, and each team within Blizzard and within Activision as a whole has its own culture, and some I think are more inclined to want to organize than others, and we might start seeing the first domino fall within an individual team or an individual group of people, and yeah, I'm curious to see what happens
Mhm.
next.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Fingers crossed, because if that happens, then I think the games industry at large will undergo some fairly, if not rapid, then at least market changes. Um, but yeah, let's see. On another note, I've got to bring this up because it also involves what I would consider a very heated Twitter beef between the two of you. Just like a very notable, just like everyone throwing down. It was very 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 frightening and terrifying. I'm being very sarcastic right now, but there was a piece that Shannon published this week about an investor group, the Strategic Organizing Center, or SOC for short, calling for Bobby Kotick's resignation. Um, but a thing that was in that piece and that Jason also tweeted about, thus starting the beef that never was that they only own a very small fraction of shares, like below 1%, while other investment groups own much more and have declined to comment entirely. Um, but yeah, I was wondering, like, in terms of overall perception of that moment, like, do you think that that investment group was able to produce a outsized reaction or an outsized public response compared to how much they actually own? Like, basically, is this kind of their broader strategy to be like, yeah, we only own a little bit, but we're able to like strike at these particular moments or call for actions at these particular moments, and people are like, the shareholders are now revolting. Like this is the shareholders at large, even though it's actually a very small percentage of them.
Yeah, I mean that was the question I asked them when I was interviewing them, like earlier this on Monday. Just you have so few shares, but actually Bobby Kotick. I've been trying to fact check this all day. Bobby Kotick has less shares than all of these small shareholders combined, unless I'm getting that wrong. He has around like just under 4 million shares. But yeah, all these shareholders combined is 4.8 million. Stock itself has 3.8 million, up from the 3 million when they were criticizing Activision Blizzard just like a month or two ago. So I guess they're increasing their shares over time. But yeah, the group is just like, well, yeah, we are really small. That's why I'm talking to you. I hope that other shareholders can see your article and then join in this fight. And then I went on to talk to Vanguard, Fidelity, BlackRock, these other major investors, major shareholders of Activision Blizzard, and all of them said they declined to comment because they don't talk about individual companies that they have in their portfolios. So we don't really know the impact of how large this is going to get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, I mean, would you say though that like overall them speaking out when they did was like an effective measure? Was that something that, at least from the standpoint of what is happening now, both internally and externally, involving Activision Blizzard, that made waves, that did something that, caused people to either like alter their thinking around this or to even like alter their decision making?
So a little bit of context, just broader context here, is that in the business world, there's a long kind of history of activism among shareholders, shareholder activism, and often it comes from small, relatively small groups of shareholders because you don't have a lot of public. There aren't a lot of publicly traded companies where there are large chunks of the stock owned by a single group. It's usually once a company goes public, it's going to be divvied among a ton of different equity firms and various pension organizers, and I believe that's what SOC is. It's a group of pension unions that put their that are kind of loosely organized around this group, and I mean, there's certainly a tradition of small groups of shareholders having an impact on companies and speaking out and kind of making waves because shareholders in any people who are trading stock are just like operate on whims. They move very quickly and they will just buy and sell based on the silliest news or for the silliest reason. So it's not particularly difficult to sway shareholders one way or the other. I think that when you're like approaching this kind of business world in a context where like a bunch of gamers are reading the news, I think it's kind of there's a certain, I think a lot of people just misinterpret stories or headlines as one thing when they really mean another. But the gist of this one is that yes, they can absolutely have an impact, and we've seen SOC make an impact on Activision before, among other companies, and we've seen shareholder activists do all sorts of work for all sorts of reasons. Often it's not for like altruistic reasons. Often it's because they think that this will lead to better returns for them. But we've seen it be very effective in the past. I think that it's important to kind of qualify what is happening here as opposed to I think a lot of people just didn't read past the headline and interpreted yesterday's news as it being a majority of shareholders or a large group of shareholders calling for Kotick's resignation, which would be a significantly bigger deal if like 51% of shareholders said, hey, we want Kotick to go, as opposed to a small percent. But that is not to diminish what activist shareholders can potentially do in the business world.
Hmm. Got it. Um, so another thing that I think has become apparent this week, at least based on what has already been like externally shown, if not internally, based on some of the things you said earlier, is that again, we kind of have a situation where, there are a lot of people within the company who work on the development side of things, who make games and who are otherwise involved in like the production, shipping, marketing of them, who are opposed to Bobby Kotick at this point. But on the side of people who are on the board, leadership, especially given what was like said at a recent all hands meeting, it seems like there are still, within the sector of powerful people at that company, plenty of people who support Bobby Kotick, or at least do not want him removed from the company. And so, I mean, like, I think that a lot of people are looking at this and saying, oh, you've got to like get get Bobby Kotick to resign, get him out, and then suddenly things will turn around for Blizzard. And the impression I get from that is like that's not necessarily the case. You're getting rid of one person, one very powerful person, but that's not, there's still plenty of other powerful people who seem to share similar views who could take his place. Is that kind of the state of things at this point?
Yeah, so there's a few perspectives on this. One is that absolutely, and in fact, I was just on the phone with someone at Activision who was saying exactly that. And this person was like, everyone's focusing on Bobby, but like there are all sorts of people here who are like doing his wishes or like who are just as bad. I think there's a perspective that's certainly one perspective, and it's like a cultural thing, a systemic thing. How do you fix that? Another perspective is, hey, if you remove the head of the snake, then the rest will the whole snake dies. And if you remove the CEO and you install someone else, then maybe you can work your way down and remove a lot of people who are causing problems, or maybe some of his best friends and his kind of cohort, maybe they just leave. A lot of different things could happen. But what happened yesterday, actually, Nathan, to your point about the all hands meeting, it's interesting. I saw a little bit of misinfo about this as well. There were actually a bunch of different all hands meetings. There were meetings per division. So like Activision had some meetings, and King had some meetings, and Blizzard had some meetings, and then there were also internal studio meetings. And what it seemed to me, having talked to people who were in a bunch of these different meetings, it seemed like everybody was, all of the executives were kind of told some certain points to hit or beats to hit. And based on what we just saw from the Wall Street Journal, it seems like Bobby Kotick has a lot of say when it comes to these PR messages. And so I wouldn't be
Mhm.
shocked if he was called his lieutenants into a room and said, "Hey, these are the beats we're hitting,"
Mhm.
because every single executive, and this is Daniel Allegra, who is the chief operating officer of Activision. This is Rob Kostich, who's the president of Activision, like formerly Activision Publishing, now just called Activision, but like the Call of Duty branch of things. This is the president of King. This is a bunch of other executives and like studio heads, and they all said that Bobby Kotick is not resigning, but he's going to work to regain trust. And they use the words regain trust. That came from all of these different meetings. And that to
Mhm.
me is really interesting. So it's kind of like one message is just getting sent down and kind of like flowing downhill from the top, which suggests that if you took out the top, then things might actually look pretty different. And I think that actually is the case at a company like this, because I think Bobby Kotick um, is pretty hands-on with a lot of parts of the business. Maybe he's not hands-on with like Call of Duty and the development of the game, or like a lot of the actual operations stuff, but he's certainly
Mhm.
hands-on with marketing. He's certainly hands-on with I mean, the Wall Street Journal reported that he was hands-on with intervening to prevent Treyarch co-studio head Dan Bunting from being resigned. So he clearly isn't like a CEO who is just stepping back and letting people do his thing. He clearly is intervening with things. So I think that there is a case to be made that removing him would lead to some big changes. And also the other thing is that like you as a company are serious about making changes, and word just came out that the guy at the top like was a perpetrator of some of these things, then like to leave him in place just really sends such a message to employees that things will never change.
Mhm.
And I think that alone is like such a significant move that even if it doesn't fix all of the problems to remove him, it just doesn't seem tenable for them as a company to keep him around.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, like, oh, good.
Oh, yeah, and then just to add on, the company Activision Blizzard was informed by Wall Street Journal, obviously, that the article was coming out, and they had prepared this video message from Bobby Kotick that was shared with all the employees, and all the employees noted like, oh, it's very staged, and he prepared this apology to say like, oh yeah, diversity and inclusion is so important to me. How could anyone ever doubt my conviction?
Okay, wait,
Um,
can I read the line really fast? It's
yeah, you
quite
can.
a because, like, to me, this line read as, if not defensive, then at least like, you know, hey, look at me, like this is about me now. Whereas before he wasn't really, I think he was trying to make it not so much about himself, but he said, anyone who doubts my conviction to be the most welcoming, inclusive workplace doesn't really appreciate how important this is to me. Like, it's more forceful language than you usually get in one of these like PR apology notes.
There was no apology in the video. He didn't.
Right.
Someone sent me the video, so I watched it. He
Mm.
didn't apologize for anything. He didn't regret anything. There was nothing even resembling an apology. It wasn't even like I apologize if you felt that way, or like I regret that blah blah blah. It was nothing apologetic or regretful. In fact, the video begins with him calling the Wall Street Journal article misleading and
Mhm.
inaccurate, and mirroring comments he made in July after the lawsuit hit. And I
Yeah,
think
so
one thing that's kind of I haven't really seen discussed a lot, but is worth pointing out, is that the lawsuit is like, in the lawsuit you can say anything you want, right? The California lawyers did not have to fact check anything they published. They did not have to run what they said in the suit by anybody, or make sure that they were being fair and accurate. And in fact, there were a couple of things in there that were not totally accurate or were a little bit exaggerated. Wall Street Journal article is a very different beast. Any sort of article that is printed in a major publication needs to go through rigorous fact checking, and is presented as fairly and as accurately as it possibly can be. And that is a significant difference from a lawsuit. And the lawsuit had obviously tons of repercussions and set off a lot of waves, but this to me feels a lot stronger than what was in the California lawsuit. As were the articles that came out later. There were all sorts of reporting done after the lawsuit hit that proved out a lot of what was said in there.
Hmm. Yeah. So a thing that you said earlier about like kind of the priorities of a company like Activision Blizzard in terms of response and what they care about and what might like set off alarms as opposed to just sort of registering as more of a blip, is that you said the notes coming out from Sony and Microsoft, and so somebody in chat earlier asked what that actually does. And like, could that lead to something as drastic as delisting games? Or is this just simply like a sort of warning shot type of thing?
Yeah, there are different levels of kind of like, I don't know, sanctions for lack of a better word, that these console makers can take. They can like deprioritize them in certification and like or make them not special partners and make them jump through more hoops in the certification process, which is like what you have to do to get your game on a console in the first place. And they can make things more bureaucratic and more nightmarish for Activision if they really want to. They can like maneuver like strip them of marketing deals, like take them off the front page, take Call of Duty off the front page of the Xbox store or whatever. There are a lot of things they can do. Delisting seems like a pretty strong step, so I'd be surprised if that happened. But these emails to me felt like pretty strong warning shots to Activision saying, hey, like some shit needs to happen right now.
Hmm. Um, yeah, no. Another thing that someone, let's see, Roller in chat asked is like, and I'm not sure if either of you know the answer to this one, but I'm also curious about it. Um, how would this impact like Overwatch League and CDL, basically Blizzard's esports leagues? Like, apparently after the California lawsuit, they lost a bunch of sponsors and things like that. This feels like another place where I would imagine sponsors are looking at things warily, but at the same time, I know that Overwatch League is in its off season, so like this will probably one way or another be far less relevant when they resume. I don't know about CDL, but yeah, like, have either of you heard anything about any of that?
I haven't heard new things, but over the course of this year, I've just heard that in general, Kotick was really in support of the esports initiatives at his company, sometimes at the detriment of like game development. And so he's really a huge fan of Overwatch League and Call of Duty League. And so if anything were to happen to him, maybe the fate of those esports would be in question.
Mm,
But beyond that, I haven't like esports and Overwatch League and Call of Duty League. I think like my colleague Teddy has been doing more of that side of things, and we should ask him at some point.
we should, and maybe we will. Um, but yeah, no. Oh, another subject I wanted to hit, as long as you still have time, Jason, because it's a subject that comes up frequently. Is I mean, for one, so Scott in chat was asking, what is the vibe on the ground for teams like the Hearthstone team, who've once again had their expansion announcement spoiled by news like this? And then to add to that, I think that you see a lot of sentiment of people saying like, I want to be excited about, for example, the new Hearthstone stuff, but I also feel weird about it right now. Should I be doing something? Should I be boycotting? So on and so forth. And so, just like in general, what's the mood for developers like that, the ones that y'all have talked to at least? And then also, like, is there any use to these sort of boycott motions, or does that just hurt developers who are working hard?
Yeah, to the first question, it's actually one of the things that's been unprecedented about this, the kind of what's been going on at Blizzard and Activision over the past few months, is that people are very outspoken on their social media feeds, and you can actually see a lot of Blizzard employees talking about how upset they are that Bobby Kotick ruined their Hearthstone release, and that this isn't the first time that the company's just missteps have really hurt the teams on the ground level. So you don't need to hear it from me. I mean, you can go and see firsthand perspectives from a lot of these people talking about how upset they are. And I think that is one of the reasons that this has snowballed so much and is really feeling like an unprecedented moment in gaming history. Is you just never see game developers speaking out the way that they have been. I've never seen game developers like outwardly calling to remove their CEO the way that has been happening now, and that to me is pretty wild and, like I said, unprecedented. To your second point, I think that like on a personal level, if people feel like they want to boycott games, they should. If you don't feel comfortable playing Hearthstone right now, then by all means don't play Hearthstone. I used to play StarCraft 2 pretty much every day, and I don't think I've opened it up since the July lawsuit, just because it has felt so weird to me. But that said, unless the developers of those games, unless the people at Blizzard, the workers, are saying, "Hey, boycott our games," you are not doing this in solidarity with them. You're doing it on your own, and that's totally fine. But this is not an action that is kind of a pro worker action. You are not supporting the workers by boycotting games. You might be making your own personal choices, and that's totally fine. Like uh, everyone who's like a consumer of anything should be making their own kind of personal moral decisions about like how much they're going to order off of Amazon, or like how much they whether they want to shop at an indie bookstore instead, and like all sorts of, we're all kind of making these calculations in our day-to-day life. And it's the same with games. Like, oh, do I really feel comfortable playing this Blizzard game, buying this Blizzard game with everything that's going on? That's like the personal calculus you should be making. But one factor that should not be going into that is like, am I going against the workers' wishes by buying this game? Because that's 100% not the case. And in fact, I'm guessing that if you asked most people on the Hearthstone team, for example, would want you to see their hard work and play what they came out with this week. Most people on the World of Warcraft team are like putting a lot of themselves into making cool stuff, and like they want it to be appreciated. They don't want to release something and then have everybody boycott it because of like decisions that were made above their heads. So no, you are not like acting in solidarity when you boycott stuff, and it shouldn't be seen as kind of a collective action or a worker friendly action. It should be seen as a personal moral choice that we all have to make.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just to add on to that, for people who are asking how to support the Activision Blizzard workers, they just published this change.org petition to ask people like outside of their own company to sign it, to also call for Kotick to resign. So I think they're trying to give people outside the company a way to support them that's not just explicitly boycotting all their games.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So if you want to support them, go sign that. Yeah, another interesting question from chat from Justin Choi. He asked, "I understand that a lot of focus is on Activision Blizzard, within on Activision and Blizzard within Activision Blizzard. Has there been a reaction from King, especially considering the portion of revenue that comes from them? Like in
Has
terms
there
of
been
just
a reaction internally?
internally from like both employees and also I'd assume like King leadership. Are they handling things any differently than Activision and Blizzard are? Are they all in lockstep? And then also like, do employees at that company, which is I think like at least in terms of its focus and in terms of the kinds of games it makes, pretty different from Activision and Blizzard. Like, are they reacting differently, or is it all kind of a similar story from the top down?
No, the answer to that is no. Like I mentioned this earlier, but yesterday there were a bunch of meetings. King had its
Mhm.
own various meetings, and a lot of the messaging was the same from the top down across all three companies. No, King has had a lot of the same. I don't know if internally if they have had the same sorts of experiences of misconduct and harassment. I have not heard from anyone at King who is like, man, I have a story to tell about my time there. But internally, right now, this week, the reaction from the company there has been the same as it is in Activision and in Blizzard.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have to say that for my reporting, I have done less work with King, but I would say, yeah, they definitely get all the same meetings. They were also part of the people to sign that petition to call for Kotick to resign, and they're just part of the same company. But in terms of like individual stories, because they were not even mentioned very much in the lawsuit, and they haven't been mentioned in much reporting in the past few months, just because of the sheer amount of stuff coming from Activision and from Blizzard. They just haven't really been the focal point of coverage.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, that is interesting though, because like I think that in general, mobile companies or companies that focus on that side of things get a lot less coverage, at least within the kind of traditional games press. So I do sort of wonder. Um, Another thing that I was wondering about, though, is sort of like I think that earlier, Jason, you were talking about the way that now we have a lot of employees at Activision and Blizzard kind of openly calling for, the removal of the CEO, and I think airing a lot of other stuff that companies or that people at companies like this normally wouldn't air. They just wouldn't talk about because the games industry is very secretive in a lot of ways. Something that you've reported on many times or that your reporting is kind of revealed. Do you think that if there is a sea change to result from this, if there is unionization, if there is all of that, that a byproduct of that could be less secrecy within the games industry, or at least like unions and organized workers feeling more able to talk about things, and therefore like some of that veil of secrecy falling away?
To some extent, I mean, there's a few different kinds of secrecy, right? Like one is
Mhm,
secrecy surrounding the products, and the other is secrecy surrounding work conditions.
mhm,
I think the secrecy surrounding work conditions has really been penetrated over the past few years with social media and more people being willing to share their stories publicly, feeling empowered, feeling like they're not alone, sharing stories, and um, what we've seen with a bunch of places. I mean, certainly with Ubisoft last summer, among other companies, we saw social media was where those stories started. And with Ubisoft, it was like one person led to another, and so on and so on. One of the things that a union does for people is it makes them feel like they're not alone, and I think that is kind of the most important. One of the obstacles behind people speaking up, especially women who have dealt with harassment, is they don't want to be targeted. They don't want to feel like they're the only voice speaking about these things. And when you're part of a union, you can kind of know that your colleagues have your back and that you'll all be able to speak together. So in that sense, yeah, absolutely. Social media has already kind of had that effect in some ways. But yeah, definitely. I think that like I said, this is unprecedented. Like we've never seen people just be outwardly like we've seen people subtweet things that are happening at their companies, like kind of throw shade in subtle ways, or like just tweet angry things that are totally vague. But we've never seen like Activision employees come out and be like, "Wow, fuck Bobby Kotick, like get him out of here." And that to me is wild. Like we're gonna be seeing the repercussions from that down the road, and I'm very curious to see what happens next. It again reminds me of what happened at our own company, Nathan, at Geo Media,
mhm,
where like um the subtweeting like led to straight up angry tweeting, and like people felt more and
mhm.
more emboldened over time the more Jim Spanfeller just continued to like bumble and step on rakes. People just felt more and more more and more like empowered to speak out, and I
Yeah,
think we're seeing something similar here.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean the people who signed today's petition signed it with their real names, which is like a level of like they've like stopped being anonymous, so much so compared to a couple months ago even. And yeah, people definitely feel more brave. I think it also speaks to this like bill that's in California state right now, to go against like non-disparagement agreements. If that bill were to pass, then it would become like employees would be protected in their ability to complain about workplace issues at companies, and not just have to, sign this contract with the company and stay silent. But at the same time, there are still these like game NDAs to keep the IP of a game
Mhm.
secret, and that would be very different, like what Jason is saying.
Right, right. And yeah, those are for the audience's sake. Yeah, NDAs like that within companies are extremely common within the games industry, um, and often result in people not being able to talk about projects or things they saw at companies even long after they stopped working at those places. Um, but yeah, so a couple more things. One is that somebody in chat just pointed out that Girls Who Code, who partner with Activision Blizzard, just announced that they are dropping that partnership. So that is yet another knock-on effect of this. Is that the Jen O'Neill went to go work with a different organization, right? That was
She didn't
not
announce. Well, the company announced they're donating $1 million to women in gaming, I believe.
okay. Yeah, it wasn't Girls Who Code. I didn't think
But
it was, but I just
yeah,
wanted
but
to be sure on that.
Jen didn't announce where she's going.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that people, a lot of people have asked is like, so we have Sony, we have Microsoft both making statements. And I mean, I feel like I kind of already know the answer to this one. I feel like it would be even more unprecedented for Nintendo to make a statement on something like this. People are wondering if they would, but Nintendo feels less like a company that would weigh in on something like this.
Yeah, it's less relevant because Nintendo publishes way fewer of Activision's games. Activision is first and foremost known for Call of Duty, and then beyond that, World of Warcraft and Candy Crush, and none of those are on Nintendo platforms. I guess Call of Duty used
Yeah.
to be
I
at
mean,
some point.
Overwatch is on the Switch, so that's
Right, right,
something.
right.
And
But
so is
talking
Diablo.
about like the main products that people think of when they think of these games, Xbox and PlayStation, it's far more powerful. And yeah, I don't know. It's seems unlikely to me that Nintendo, just because they're a Japanese company, they're more buttoned up, they're less likely to do this sort of thing. But I guess we'll see what happens.
Hmm. And then, yeah, I mean, like, if Bobby Kotick especially like goes down here, if there are like long-standing repercussions on that level, like, I mean, how much of a knock-on effect do we see? Do you think we see at companies like Ubisoft and Riot, both of which have had various accusations against them? And I think one of the big things the Ubisoft employees are upset about is that a lot of the people who, much like with Bobby Kotick, a lot of the people who maintained actual power and oversaw a kind of regime of toxicity are still there. Like, do you think that if Bobby is, suddenly removed, that we start seeing movements towards similar things at places like Ubisoft and maybe even Riot?
I think this goes back to what Jason is saying about unionization. Like the fact that these companies are not unionized means that if one company changes and improves, it's not going to really shake the entire industry. Maybe on some like small policy levels, but there isn't like an overarching, um, like I don't know, law that would
Mhm.
affect all of the companies at once.
So the big difference between Activision and the other companies you mentioned, Ubisoft and Riot, is that Activision's story directly implicated the CEO in a knowing what was going on because he had direct knowledge of some of the incidents and not telling the board about them, and b being a perpetrator of incidents himself. The reporting on Riot and Ubisoft certainly implicated their respective founders and CEOs in kind of overseeing terrible culture that really hurt a lot of people. And in Ubisoft's case, it was very clear through reporting at Bloomberg and at other places that that Yves Guillemot was well aware, and that it was in fact his close friends doing these things. But there isn't like that kind of smoking gun, like this guy was involved, this guy did this, this guy did this,
Mm.
the way that the Wall Street Journal had on Bobby Kotick this week. Um, we haven't seen anything like that. There was nothing on the scale. There was nothing directly tying any CEOs of those companies or leaders of those companies the way that this had. And in fact, some of the people who were directly named, such as Serge Haskowit. I never know how to pronounce his last name, but Serge
Mhm.
at Ubisoft, and Tommy Francois and a bunch of other people who were specifically named as the practicers of bad behavior. Their heads rolled. They were kicked out. In Riot's case, same thing happened. A fair number of people who were named were ousted. And there's kind of a level. I don't know if you guys have seen Succession, but there's a lot of talk of like whose head can you put on the platter? Who can you kill in front of everyone as your blood sacrifice? And in both Riot and Ubisoft's case, there were enough lower level heads to kill that you could be insulated at the very top, despite some grumbling from observers and employees. Whereas in Activision's case, that is much less likely at this point. The other thing, by the way, is that Ubisoft is very much a family business. The
Mhm.
Guillemots, I believe, have 5 seats on that board of 5 Guillemot brothers there are, and they all have seats on the board. So their power is a lot more entrenched than even Bobby Kotick, who's been at Activision for 30 years running the place. I don't think has quite the same level of power. Although I guess we're about to see just how close he is with those other board members, or how much stuff he has on them. Because at this point, I guess we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, and also it's worth mentioning. Oh, and it's an ongoing joke on this stream now, or a demand on the stream that Nathan should watch Succession. Um, but yeah, for Ubisoft, actually, there are parts of it that are unionized here and there because of the fact that it's a European company,
Mhm.
and there are studios in France and the UK that do have like small unions that it's not that the whole studio is unionized, but that the people there are part of a union. So that does protect them in some cases. I wanted to add that there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually funny that you say that too, because Joda in chat said, working at King and being part of ABK is super alien. US culture feels very far away from our European corporate culture where unions are the norm. Um, And yeah, let's see. They say something. Yeah, there was also another comment that I found very interesting, and also like maybe indicative, maybe not. I had not heard of a company doing this before, but I'm not surprised. So, player slot available in chat said, games company I worked at now requires all employees to share their social media login details with the company, so that people can't post anything that goes against their guidelines, which is really something.
Social media login details with the company.
Yeah,
What?
apparently. Yeah,
That's
Crazy.
going too far.
I mean that's pretty next level. Yeah. Okay, I have to answer one really quickly. Does this channel actually have any relation to the Washington Post? Kind of curious. Yes, it does. We are an extension of we are part of the Washington Post. The Washington Post covers video games. We have a relatively small team doing it, but
I
it is a
thought
thing that
this
we do.
was where Jeff Bezos streamed his
No,
his
no, that's on Wednesdays. This is
Th-
Thursday.
This is where he
he's really
streams
into Bravely Default.
and
Yeah, yeah,
New World and I guess Lost Ark. Yeah.
yeah. But he's really into Fortnite Naruto right now. He's just all about that. He loves to like he'll get up on stream and do like an actual Naruto run just around the room. That's how stoked he is. um, but yeah, no, we are part of the Washington Post, and you should watch our stuff and read our coverage because we work very hard. Um, but yeah, let's see. Beyond that,
Can probably do one more question and then I gotta run.
one more question. Okay, gosh, I was waiting for chat to just supply me with one, and they've really let me down because they're too busy being disgusted by the whole social media login policy from that one company. Um, let's see. What is something else that we can answer? I mean, I kind of already asked it earlier, but I feel like, again, the big question kind of like on everybody's mind is just like, does this can Bobby Kotick at this point continue to hang on? Or is he kind of like, are his days numbered? I think was the way that I even phrased it on Twitter. I mean, like, again, the situation is unprecedented, so it's, difficult to predict. But like, it is would somebody like him in the games industry, given the way it's currently structured, like ever be able to be ousted on these terms?
Hmm. I think there's like another CEO who's like settled a sexual harassment lawsuit against him before and is still the
Hmm.
CEO of a gaming company. So there is precedent for somebody, having allegations against them and just maintaining power. So yeah, it could go either way, really.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to prognosticate too much. I have a hard time just seeing him surviving past this week, but it really depends on the board and what they ultimately decide. And if they think they can survive with him and that it'll keep making them more money going forward. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Hmm.
I imagine that they're having some crazy meetings right now, um, trying to figure out what to do. Because I mean, one of the interesting things about Activision's board is that, like a lot of companies in corporate America, is not particularly independent. It is like, I believe, four of the people there, including Bobby and his other co-founder, I believe four of members of the board have been there for at least 18 years.
Yeah.
So these are guys who have been in the trenches together. They've been through a lot. Activision had a very, very public battle with Vivendi, where they bought out their shares and kind of spun off from Vivendi. They had a very public battle where shareholders sued them, and they had to kind of pay off those shareholders. Obviously, Bobby Kotick went through the whole Call of Duty saga 11 years ago, and Vince Zampella and Jason West were fired, and they were embroiled in legal warfare for a few months, which Activision settled. And no matter what happens, Bobby seems to just keep staying and keep getting richer. Even as EA, their biggest rival, has gone through probably 4 or 5 CEOs in the whole time that Bobby has been CEO. Bobby is by far the longest running CEO in the video game world. So it'll be really interesting. I don't know. I really I cannot predict it. My gut is telling me that I can't imagine that they'll keep him, but after this week. But crazier things have happened.
Yeah, I think it's indicative that, every time I reach Activision Blizzard for comment on this story every day, they just point me back to the board of directors statement saying that they remain very confident in Bobby Kotick's leadership. So,
Hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah, then at this point, we're just gonna, I guess, have to wait and see. It is certainly a heck of a situation. Jason, thank you for joining us. It was great to have
Cool.
you,
Thanks,
especially,
guys.
yeah.
yeah,
Thanks, Jason.
yeah. Also,
Same.
this is the point at which I should say that we have another segment after this, where we go through some of the other big news of the week. It would be wonderful if all of y'all in chat and watching stuck around. Um, but if you do not want to stick around, that's understandable too.
Wow. Why are you underselling it? No, no, no. You should all stick around. You have to
I,
stick around. Let's go.
I like to structure our show like a video game. I like to give people choices
hmm
so that they can then do as they wish. I like to make
Um,
it a moral choice though. If you leave, that's the evil choice.
if
So
you cared about Activision Blizzard news and if Bobby Kotick will stick around or not, I think you would also care about the rest of the industry and what is affecting it this week.
you would figure. All right. So actually, it's really funny. That's the browser window I have open. Here's this great art for our story about Bobby Kotick's resignation.
Oh, it's a
Um,
pen and a signature. Okay, now I
yeah,
got it.
yeah.
Wow,
Yeah, it makes
cool.
Bobby Kotick look like kind of regrettably a little bit cool. I don't love that. But anyway, in other news that happened this week, oh yeah, the webcam was out of frame for a second. People are now remarking on that. It's fine. It's back to normal now. Um, yeah, we've had so many fun technical issues today. So the
Oh,
yeah, you're
my
so humble about your show that I want to stick around. Oh, thank you. That's very nice of you, Sab.
only
But
you
in
were, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, we balance each other out in that way, right? Let me guess. We should also slam the like button and the subscribe button.
Yes,
That would
you
be.
should like, comment, and subscribe. Okay, also, this is my friend Ana Diaz from Polygon.
Oh yeah,
Saw
it
her
is.
article.
Yeah. So the first story that I want to hit this week, I think actually ties in a lot with Activision Blizzard, because I think that it is not a coincidence that in the same week we had Activision Blizzard stuff kind of, just go off. We also had a situation where Streamlabs, a major provider of kind of software to Twitch streamers, had its own major scandal about toxicity within a company and the way that they sort of run their company, such that they've been like, the thing that made a lot of people mad is basically that they've been copying a lot of features and even names from other companies in the same space. So
Okay,
basically, OBS is software that allows people to stream to platforms like Twitch. It facilitates that. It allows you to, it's very versatile. It's OBS itself, not Streamlabs OBS, but OBS is its own company. Streamlabs basically like made their own branch of that software and then just wholesale took the name. So they call it Streamlabs OBS.
can
They
I,
call it SLOBS for short, which is a
yes.
terrible
Can I
acronym.
just say that's a hilarious name? I immediately saw that. I was like, slobs. Why would you want
Yeah.
to call your product slobs? And you're trying to steal someone's name just so you can call yourself slobs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, OBS is ubiquitous for streamers. I mean, like having that name does like immediately grant you legitimacy, even if you ruin it by calling it slobs. But yeah, so they did that. They basically never had an agreement with OBS. They just started using the name. OBS was like, "Hey, can you not?" Because basically, like OBS has their own like GitHub that you can kind of use and modify their software. So like this is sort of allowed, but OBS was like, "No, we don't agree to this. We don't want you doing this." And they tried to resolve it privately and finally went public with it. Yeah, near the launch of Slobs, reached out to us asking to use the name. We kindly asked them not to. They did so anyway and followed up by filing a trademark. We've tried to sort this out in private, and they've been uncooperative at every turn. So this plus an instance in which OBS or in which Streamlabs basically copied somebody else's landing page. Yeah, like to an obscene degree. So another company called Lightstream, like if you look at this, they are to the extent that you can have like they're the same.
Yeah.
Like this is Lightstreams and this is Streamlabs. And like they even use a lot of the same text. Apparently this was a mistake according to Streamlabs, but uh,
I just want to say really quickly, in the chat we have a question from Players Not Available. It
hmm,
wasn't Streamlabs acquired by Logitech. Yes, it
yes,
was for
they are
$89
acquired in
million.
2019.
Yeah. So yeah, this is Logitech.
Yeah, so this is
Slobs.
a very big company too. Um, and so yeah, they have a long history, or Streamlabs has a long history of doing just very sketchy stuff, both internally and externally, in terms of like, I mean, for one, their original name, Twitch Alerts, was just like straight up they used another brand's name for like most of their company existence, and then didn't clarify that they weren't part of Twitch. But that's just like the very beginning of it. So there's also a bunch of other instances of them taking features from other companies. Yeah, like for example, the Bit Cup that a person named Muxy pioneered. Bits are basically a currency on Twitch that you can use to tip streamers. Let's see. Oh yeah, this one is wild. Especially because I've been talking to sources about this. This is apparently like very deliberately designed. There's a subscription button in the pro service, $5.99, that you opt into when you send a tip. Like you immediately, if you try to tip a streamer, then you opt into their service that then charges you $5.99 like per month or per on a regular basis. And like not only is it unclear that you're doing that and that's intentional, that is like a thing that they have had actual Slack discussions about, like how do we make this more difficult, like how do we make it so that people don't necessarily know they're opting in, but then it's also deliberately designed so that it's really hard to unsubscribe from. Like the entire process is very convoluted purposefully. They did this like all knowingly, which is just wild. And then, yeah, their parent company before Logitech was super sketchy, up to the point where there was an FTC intervention on them. Um, let's see. And then employees have shared all of these testimonies that are very, very unfortunate. Like, here's one person who I guess ran their entire TwitchCon operation one year, like single handedly. Put them in charge 3 weeks before the event, no resources, and then fired me immediately after for being stubborn about making it wheelchair accessible,
Mm.
which is just like, yeah, I mean, you want to play
Mhm.
the hits of being mean to an employee and just bad to people in general. That's all of them in just a single go. Um,
Yeah. Yep.
and like, that's just the beginning too. Let's see, the worst one I remember is auto sub to Streamlabs. Yeah, was told this was happening. It was the number one support request ticket. We had complaints all the time as partnership managers. We were told it wasn't going to be fixed because of how much money it made. Like, that was really bad. And then a thing that I've heard from people that I've talked to as a trend is that what they would do is anytime if people were dissenting within the company, they just put them on performance improvement plans. And these performance improvement plans, given like staffing levels, were just kind of impossible to actually overcome. And
Mhm.
like for people who, exist outside of this very corporate part of the business world, a performance improvement plan is basically a company mandate that says, hey, these are the ways that you're failing. And if you do not shape up, then you're fired.
I think it's I won't say it's pretty common, but I think that at some companies, people are put on performance improvement plans
Mhm.
as documentation so they can later be fired and it's not wrongful termination. So it's
Yep.
actually the company is thinking a few steps ahead, like, okay, if I just fire you now, you're gonna come back and sue me. So
Hmm.
let me put you on this plan and cover my own behind. Um, yeah, this is a lot. Somebody James Jackson says that the worst part of Streamlabs is that we started a show called Washington Post Gaming Story Mode. Thanks, James Jackson, for the roast.
Wow. Um, but yeah, no. So just like, this just, has gotten worse and worse in terms of what people have revealed about Streamlabs. And so things seem to kind of broadly be, if not collapsing for them, then at least like it seems like a lot of streamers are saying, okay, I'm going to reallocate to a different streaming platform. A lot of major streamers, including like Hassan and Pokimane, I believe Pokimane is someone who has actually partnered with Streamlabs even, have said like, hey, I'm going to, move elsewhere, at least if things don't shape up. So yeah, again, though, I think that it is um, not, I mean, it's a coincidence that both this and all the Blizzard stuff happened in the same week, but it's also not a coincidence from like a structural standpoint that you have yet another company where there is a lot of like, you know, either outright corruption from higher ups or just like a lot of very toxic, very suspicious behavior, and that these things are coming to light. And another feature that this entire incident has shared with Activision Blizzard, that I would say maybe even is a result of Activision Blizzard, is that again, you have a lot of people who at least formerly worked there and some who still work there sharing stories directly with their names attached. Just,
Yeah.
talking about specific details, about things that happened to them. This, by the way, these four that I showed are just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many at this point.
Hmm. Yeah.
And yes, I mean, I think that, you can kind of see the knock-on effects of Activision Blizzard here in a way that is, at least to me, encouraging for kind of rooting out, games industry malfeasance.
Hmm.
Yeah. We'll see if this trend continues. Fingers crossed that it does, because, this is how this is how it happens, right? This is the way that I think you make change occur within companies like this, is people have to be unafraid to speak out. um, and then, like, for people who have been asking, like, how do I support employees at companies like this, a way that you can also do it is just by being, publicly supportive of them. I think that a
Yeah.
lot of these companies, when they feel like they do not have when the public is against them, they're much more cautious to act against employees who are speaking out. Because if the headline goes from, company did bad thing, people are mad about it, to company did bad thing, people are mad about it, and then the company sued someone for speaking out, they're just like, there's no coming back from that.
Can
That's
I
like
just say,
yeah.
can I just say, like, it also depends on how much like media coverage and lawsuits and legal scrutiny there is on a particular company. Like
Mhm.
Activision Blizzard employees have been begging for months that like media companies don't forget about them and don't stop telling the story. Whereas Streamlabs just appeared right now. I'm pretty sure it's
Mhm.
going to get swept under the rug by other companies. I mean, there's so many other companies. At the time that the Activision Blizzard lawsuit came out in July, a lot of people across the games industry were like, well, my company was also abusive. And those stories aren't getting told because of the lack of bandwidth from games journalists. Just like, everybody's focused on Activision Blizzard now. And that's really like where the spotlight is. And yeah, this happens at a lot of different companies. But even just for like Activision Blizzard employees themselves, it was really hard to keep that momentum going. Like wasn't even hitting the headlines anymore until this week because of that Wall Street Journal scoop. And they had to dig out all these emails from Kotick and his
Mhm.
lieutenants in order to even make that much of an impact.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, it's like Jason phrased it. It's kind of it was a smoking gun moment, and it's the reason why, Kotick is suddenly in such a difficult position. Also, oh, thank you. Let's see. Wow, there's dust on my other monitor, so I'm gonna
Oh,
take a
it's
second.
Blue Palmetto
Yeah,
complimenting your Twitch reporting. Yep.
yeah. Thank you so much. That means a lot. Um, but yeah, so in other somewhat lighter news this week, that's still interesting to me. Uh, Halo Infinite's multiplayer surprise launched, or at least, like, it was, heavily rumored leading up to Monday. But I think a lot of people, including our own Gene Park, were skeptical that it was actually going to happen, and then it happened. um, which is interesting on a lot of levels, because, for one, it came out, and unlike every other multiplayer launch that happens these days, like, servers held up and the game worked.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a
Which,
very impressive marketing tactic too.
well, yeah, and it's especially impressive because one of the other things that sort of, has, I think, dogged, like, Halo Infinite has had a pretty troubled development cycle, to the point that last year it sustained a major delay. They brought in a former, like, someone who worked on previous Halo games to, like, sort of build it back into shape after a pretty disastrous reveal that, got turned into a meme with, like, Craig the Brute and all of this stuff.
Yeah. Since we're on
um
YouTube, we should mention there was like a about a 10-minute Halo Infinite like trailer like I don't know, preview last year, like a little trailer, and then that got downvoted like so much. That was like maybe
mhm,
I don't know, 30%, 40% dislikes. And because people said it looked ugly and it looked boring. And I went to a media event for Halo Infinite where I
mhm,
asked these developers point blank, like, why does the game look ugly according to some fans? Can you react to that? And they just like ignored my question and skipped over it. And they decided to answer other questions like, how fun will this game be? And okay, what other features do we have? And then we have some wheels rolling down. I don't know. They just like moved on and didn't
mhm.
answer my question, and I thought that was very jarring because I was like the first question. So,
Yeah. Yeah. If people want some inside baseball on, like, how games press stuff works, a lot of companies will do, like, group interviews for major games and stuff like that, especially at reveals. And it's just awful. It's so bad because you have, like, a mixture of people trying to ask their actual questions, and then other people who are parts of, like, more, parts of the press that are more subservient. And let's be like, I've never heard the question, how fun is the game going to be? But I've heard, like, every question you could possibly ask that basically is that question, but with more words,
mhm.
of just like, what are you doing to make the game even better than the last one, which was the best game I've played in my life? Like that kind of
Yes,
a thing. And you're
exactly.
just like, oh my God, no. But
Mhm.
anyway, so yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. Folks in chat, have you played Halo? Have you been into it? Because I've been playing it and I've been enjoying it a lot. But at the same time, it does just feel kind of like more Halo. And I'm interested to see if this game ends up actually catching on in the way that previous, more recent Halos haven't. Because we've had this kind of, in recent years or in the past even decade, multiplayer shooter boom that has encapsulated both Call of Duty, which became, the big annual shooter, and then also battle royales, things like that. Like, I mean, you have all these shooters becoming like household names, and then Halo just kind of faded into the background, despite being like the shooter of the 2000s. And it
Mhm.
just hasn't really been able to mount a successful comeback. I think in part because like 343 has been getting their footing, and it feels like they finally have a winning take on the Halo formula in terms of how it feels and plays. But I think the big question is like, is that formula still relevant enough to hold people's interests in the long run? Or is it going to be sort of a thing where there's all this hype initially, in part because of the surprise launch, which I think is an underrated strategy if you can pull it off? Or are people just going to be like, is it that hype going to like maintain, or is it going to deflate pretty rapidly over time? So yeah, a lot of people in chat are saying, let's see, I liked it a lot, but the progression system seems lacking. Progression issue is really bad. I'm glad it's getting patched. Personally think the gameplay is superb, but progression is horrible, incredibly stingy.
Shout out
Um,
to Terraria, good game.
oh yeah, Terraria is a really good game. It's beta, waiting for a full release. Yeah, I mean, to Justin Choi's point, it is beta technically, but I mean, it's beta only in that sense where like publishers do that a lot these days, right? They'll launch something in beta. Battlefield 2042 did the same thing, where it's like it's in beta, but it's like only sort of. It's basically out. I mean, case in point, the first season of the game, which is technically part of the beta, is going to run until May of next year, which is absurd. But I mean, like that will just carry over from beta into 1.0. Like this is launch basically. They're just ironing out some kinks.
Mhm.
But yeah, people have been talking about the progression system, which is like not amazing and is in fact quite bad. Like I was playing the other night, and yeah, like I think a lot of people have talked about this, but I think in the course of playing for a total at this point of like 6 hours, I've leveled up like 2 or 3 times on the battle
Mhm.
pass and like earned a couple of like rinky dink cosmetics that just aren't amazing.
Mhm.
Um, so Bungie is modifying, or not Bungie, 343 is modifying that. They said today players can now earn XP by completing match-made games, which thank goodness, because like before it was just so weird. You complete these arbitrary challenges and get some XP, and then if you didn't, like you'd have an amazing game, right? Like the best match of your life, you pick up like 30 kills, you're the person who carried your team, and then your meter just goes like boop, a tiny little bit, and you're like, wow, that was very deflating.
They want you to grind.
Well, they do. They really want you to. I mean, it's like it's a free to play approach to Halo. And I think maybe they overdid it in terms of trying to get you to play every day and stick around and yeah, just grind through it. Also,
Mhm.
wow, Washington Post Gaming, my number one fan, said, Nathan, maybe you just need to get better.
Oh no. Oh man, Washington Post gaming with the burns.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna hop on a train to DC.
How,
We're
how are
gonna go
you
fight it
gonna
out.
how are you
I'm
gonna
going to
survive this
go
one? Oh wow.
I'm
Okay.
going to go fight the Washington Post.
Real life battle royale. Let's go.
Yeah. Wow, real life battle royale, just 2 people. Um, shout out to the mods dunking on the hosts. People are very into this. From now on, our mods should just abuse us every week. Chat should be like people asking questions kindly, and then the mods are just like viciously tearing into us
The
with like
mods
increasingly personal details that they've dug up on our pasts. And we're
the
just like
the mods
barely
can do that
holding
to you. They should leave me alone.
it. All right. Well, yeah, it's open season on me. People just go for it. Whatever. I don't care. Um, I do care. But anyway.
Oh no. Okay, all right. Well, hope you feel
Yeah.
better.
Anyway, so yeah, they are improving the system, but it's still one of those things where like this feels like because I think that there's a way to do this such that you reward really good play. Because one of the things about Halo that made it really hard to adapt into a modern landscape is that the appeal of Halo multiplayer has always been just like playing it and having a good time on a match by match basis because it feels really good to play. I still think that there are a few shooters that feel better than Halo. It's just like meaty and chunky, and like things have a more of a tangible impact than they do in other shooters.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just like a matter of, but how do you adapt that to a framework where you like unlock rewards that actually feel like they matter? Like people just don't really seem like they're super into dressing up their Spartans. It's just never really been like a thing. So yeah, it's weird. And you're seeing like already, I just pulled up some stats that I'm kind of interested in, even though they're preliminary. Like you're already seeing on Twitch a like slight viewership drop off. Like you had the first day, that's hype. So, you can't really read that much into this. But then like second day, peaks are already down by like 100,000 viewers. Third day, down to 106. Like it keeps dropping precipitously already, meaning it's
You have
probably
to
not going to be like the next big Twitch shooter.
you
And
have
that
to
doesn't
wait for
mean
the
everything or even that much of anything necessarily, but it does mean that like the excitement is already like the air is already coming out of the balloon a little bit. And then if you look at Steam stats, it's kind of a similar story. Lots of hype out the gate. And then these are, hours where people aren't playing that much because they're sleeping. And then like peak is a little bit lower, peak is a little bit lower.
Well, what about you should wait for this weekend, and then you'll
Hmm.
be able to tell. Like, actually, wait two weekends and then see.
True, true. And I mean, like, what they also have going for them is that, like, again, this is still technically the beta, right? And
Mhm.
so they're also going to have their like proper launch when Halo and the campaign come out, and that'll once again reinflate player numbers. Even if, and this is the biggest crime in the world to me, indeed in history, there's not going to be split screen co-op for the campaign on launch, which is like that's the essence of Halo is split screen co-op campaign, and
Mhm.
they're going to patch it in later, which is so disappointing to me. Oh my god, there are ads for Succession on this page. The world wants me to watch this show. I was going to say this stupid show. It sounds like a great show. I don't want to
No,
insult it.
you know what? I've been watching it, and I feel like it is really more about like it's like a family drama, rather than a journalism it's both, but
Mhm.
you'll enjoy this show. We all have to, all of the viewers, we all have to get Nathan to watch Succession, please.
Mhm.
Let's go.
But yeah, no, it's also yeah, to answer Goose Comics question, I think that Twitch is like less of a driver of success. I mean, it's sort of a mixture of like it can be indicative of the levels of hype around a game, and it can also, as Shannon pointed out in chat, um, it can also drive that hype too. Because if you see a lot of streamers playing something, you're gonna have more curiosity from people who watch those streamers, and they'll also want to participate in playing with those streamers. So they'll probably be more likely to download the game and try it out. And then like again, then you have an entire content cycle going around a game. So like if a lot of streamers are playing a game, YouTubers are probably talking about that game and posting videos regularly about it, and it becomes this entire little ecosystem just around a single game that helps sustain it almost as much as content being added to that game by the developers. um, and so
Mhm.
like yeah, as soon as you get those same people being like, oh, this is a dead game, no one cares about it, a lot of people, for better or worse, listen to those streamers even when they don't know what they're talking about, which is a lot of the time because it's their job just to talk forever. uh, so at some point they
Yeah.
run out of things they know about and they start just saying nonsense.
I
But
mean,
yeah, I mean,
just yeah, to
yeah.
your point, I mean, Goose Comics, your question is the same as CNN's question. Every time they edited my article and I was like, "Oh, this is the top game on Twitch." They're like, "Why do I care?" And it's like, yeah, this number doesn't translate to direct sales of the game or anything, direct revenue, but it does mean people are like their eyeballs are on it, so advertisers care. And of course, yeah, Animal Crossing is not like a very streamable game. I mean, you could
Mhm,
stream it like when it came out, people were streaming it, but like you could just walk around weeding your island and
mhm.
stomping on cockroaches and
Wait,
fishing.
why don't we have competitive versions of weeding your island and stomping on cockroaches? That just seems like it should be an esport.
Yeah, okay, see, like if that happened, maybe, but no, we don't do that. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the issue too, right? Is there are different metrics for success? And like a game like Animal Crossing is not really sustained by like a competitive ecosystem in the same way that a game like Halo would be. Like Animal Crossing, I mean, for one, it sold a ton. For two, like the multiplayer component of Halo is free. So like that's already one thing. Animal Crossing just needs to like sell a lot and then they've succeeded. Whereas Halo needs to be downloaded a lot and like the point of a free-to-play game is to keep people around for long enough that they are encouraged to spend money on either a battle pass or season pass or DLC cosmetics, any of those things. So like it behooves them to have sustained interest, whereas Animal Crossing just needs to get you in the door. That's one thing. Although they just had paid DLC, so they want you to come back for that now and spend more money.
Also, the clue is in the name, like Halo Infinite.
Mm.
They named it that so they don't have to do another sequel. They don't have to do like Halo 10, 15, 20. They can just stop here and keep updating this game, which was like the developer's plan, is to just have this like live service game as a service, and just reel people in by microtransactions and Game Pass subscriptions over the long haul. And I don't know, will you do it? We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely see. That's sort of one of the things here is like, is this going to be a success to the degree that Microsoft can keep iterating on this version of Halo forever, or at least for the indefinite future, kind of like what Bungie's done with Destiny 2? Or is it going to be a thing where like this is another swing and maybe a nearer miss than Halo 5 was, because Halo 5 was bad. But like, is it going to be another case where they have to like again iterate and kind of try to finally nail it with this game? And then again, I think the bigger question too is Halo's formula itself a thing that is compelling enough to sustain something like that? Because you have like a lot of, again, to go back to like influencers and streamers as a metric, even if they're like not necessarily an accurate or good one, they're kind of all complaining about like it's just Halo again. Like classic gameplay is a mistake. Nick Merckx is like same old thing. And again, like, are these reliable people who know everything about games? Absolutely not. But they are people who play games for, hundreds of hours per month, and who like, if anyone's going to tell you if a thing can hold on to somebody's interest for a long time, it would be people who do that for a living.
Oh yeah.
So we'll
If
see.
they're already bored, that doesn't bode very well.
Right. And I mean, I'll say like the same thing, honestly, for myself on a smaller scale is like, first couple nights it was out, I was having a blast. And like I wanted to like I remember the day after it came out, like after staying up late and playing Halo, I woke up and I was like, oh, I just want to play more Halo. And I get through the workday and just go back to playing it. And then I did that second session, which was really fun and I had a great time. And at the end of that, I was like, okay, I can kind of, take this or leave this for a couple days. Um, and like, to have that drop off already is like because I've been there, played a lot of Halos. But anyway, that's enough
Yeah.
Halo talk.
Yes,
Another
please.
interesting story from this week is that so Microsoft said this nice thing about game preservation and emulation, which is very good, but the Xbox also isn't really acting, or Xbox isn't really acting on it, right? So like, yeah, basically Phil Spencer, who's the vice president of gaming at Microsoft, said, my hope, and I think I have to present it that way as of now, is as an industry, we'd work on legal emulation that allowed modern hardware to run any, within reason, older executable, allowing someone to play a game. So basically, letting people play older games and making it as accessible as possible. And like, I think that's especially relevant right now in light of the fact that, for example, we just got these GTA remasters that have been an unmitigated disaster. Basically, Rockstar took Grand Theft Auto and tried to upscale it. I think at this point, it's pretty well known that they used like software to do it, such that it has created all of these glitches and visual errors.
Oh, that's
And
so funny. I just downloaded the trilogy that's
oh
remastered.
yeah, no,
I
let's check
was
this out.
going to open it and play it.
GTA
I haven't
remastered
yet. So that's great to know. That's gonna
donut.
happen to me this weekend.
Let's
Donut.
see. Yeah, so there's like a donut shop in the game that is a really good example of why the remaster is just kind of, yeah. So here we go. So upscaling took Tough Nut Donut, which like the whole theme was this little like nut right here, right? And so it should be shaped that
Oh,
way,
that's so
and
funny.
rounded the edges so it's not a nut anymore.
Two donuts, one metal, one real.
Yeah,
Yum.
metal donuts, a great flavor of donut.
Yeah,
Um,
totally builds iron.
yeah. Wow. But yeah, so like this happened, and I think it's a really good. And so in conjunction with this, Rockstar removed the older versions of the game from platforms like Steam. Like your only option now, at least like legally, is to buy the remasters, which are not in great shape and won't be for a while. I mean, I think modders will probably, improve them at a faster clip than a company like Rockstar ever would have. But even then, that requires more hoops for you to jump through to get them up to speed. And so as a result of this, I think that it's much easier right now to argue in favor of emulation, because if studios or if publishers are going to keep removing the original versions of things in favor of remasters that are not always good, then you need an alternative option. And that option in many cases is emulation,
Yeah.
or like what people would call piracy, but I think that's a like derogative term that tries to obscure the good emulation can do, which
Yeah.
is to preserve games, to preserve older games in their original state, and in some cases a better state.
Yeah, it's very hard to play old games, so yeah, emulation make them more accessible. Also from like a developer standpoint, the donuts and just like using AI to scale up remastering. I think it's because like if you were to remaster it by hand yourself as a human, it would take so long,
Hmm.
and you maybe forever, many
Oh
many
yeah,
years.
yeah.
And
These
so
games are huge.
yeah,
Yeah, no, it
so it was
absolutely
like
would.
so they were trying to save on labor costs and all of that to make that happen.
Yeah, no, Goose Comics just asked, did they pull a Warcraft 3 Reforge as in remaster the original, make it worse, remove the original? Yes, they did exactly that. Same thing as Warcraft 3, which is another very good example of this problem. Um, and then, yeah, James Jackson just said Take-Two is already suing the modders. So that's great. Wonderful. Really healthy ecosystem we have here. Yeah, and I mean, like, other companies, Nintendo is notorious for suing people who use their properties in any way that they consider to be not correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, it's interesting on that point to see somebody like Phil Spencer come out in favor and support of what would essentially be emulation. But again, we also have this issue where right now the Xbox only has a limited amount of it, because the Xbox does emulate things. That's how it runs older games. Um, but I guess right now the plan is not really to expand that as much as maybe they could. Yeah. The Xbox website notes, while we continue to stay focused on preserving and enhancing the art form of games, we have reached the limit of our ability to bring new games to the catalog from the past due to licensing, legal, and technical constraints, which is a big bummer.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why there's a great robust market on eBay for these older consoles and games.
Yeah, no. I think Phil Spencer should just quit Microsoft and go make fan games. He should really put his money where his mouth is.
You should
So
tell him that. Let him
he should
know.
go he should go on the dark web. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So let's see. Very different subject. Very
Oh,
big
great.
2021
I
energy
got a
here.
text about this today, or yeah, I got a text from the writer.
Yeah.
I guess yesterday, probably.
Yeah. This is super wacky. So, a little while back, a congressman posted a video that was based on the anime Attack on Titan that depicted basically like Joe Biden being acted violently against. And let's see, I guess he deleted it. I wonder if there is surely somebody preserved that video, because
Oh,
it was certainly something.
are you sure you want to play that on
Yeah,
here?
I guess we probably can't. We could get like, if not DMCA, then at least, like that might go against YouTube's algorithms.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, YouTube censorship in action, baby.
If you're a viewer, you're curious, you can go ahead and look for it. I'm sure it's not hard to
Yeah,
find.
yeah. If you just search like Paul Gosar Attack on Titan video, you'll find it. But anyway, he made basically like a video that emulated yeah, so it depicted himself and his Republican colleagues killing both AOC and Joe Biden.
It's
Which
my
is,
first time reading this article.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah, it's truly bonkers.
Uh,
Especially because it's like this old Republican dude, and I guess he's into anime. It makes sense that he's into Attack on Titan specifically, given its like nationalist overtones. But that's a conversation for another day. In any case, yeah. So he did this video and ended up actually suffering consequences from it, which is new for Republicans currently in power. Um, he got censured in such a way where he will have less power going forward. Let's see specifically. Let's see. Yeah. House members voted along party lines. Oh yeah, that part is not what it is. Where is it?
was it
Um,
was it like the last sentence of the first graph? And also, maybe we should
hmm,
quickly recap. Attack on Titan is a very good anime about a lot of people who are in the military who are like fighting against these giant titans,
hmm.
and it's a very gory anime with like a almost like a German opera theme song. Very nice. And then yeah, just a lot of like violence and killing, and
Yeah.
now he has taken this clip and repurposed it. This Republican has a House of Representatives rep he has from Arizona has taken the clip to show him killing AOC and Biden.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Yeah, and so basically, what other members of what people in the House argued is that was encouraging violence against people who are in office, and Republicans, especially Gosar, were like, no, it's not. And also, we got this incredible clip where noted weeb rep, as Kotaku puts it, Andy Biggs of Arizona, basically defended Gosar, and I just got to play it because it's so good. It's so good. Here, let me get some volume going. It's really something. Okay, take it away, you weeb.
But we're here today. I've lived in Japan. I lived in Japan for several years.
Great.
I speak Japanese.
Nice, dude.
I read and write Japanese.
Wow.
This is an anime.
Did he just say it with the accent?
Yeah,
this is an anime.
It's actually good. Like, wait, we got to go back.
Anime. It is Shingeki no Kyojin.
That's good pronunciation. That's like decent pronunciation for somebody not from Japan.
Intended to demonstrate the alienation people feel, particularly young people, in their cultures.
I don't know if that's necessarily accurate.
Cool. In their cultures, but it's okay. Whatever. It's
And so Democrats disagreed. So we know where the glorification and promotion of violence leads, and this is actually like a savvy point. We've seen it this year. Previous years, piercing tweets become sharp knives. Fiery words bring out deadly firearms, and cartoon killing begets real life bloodshed. I mean, that's a little overstated.
This is very interesting because this is the same argument that Republicans make against video games.
It is, and I think that this is a sloppily made argument against a real phenomenon, which is that people often use jokes and memes as a way of inciting, actual violence or actual harassment and things like that. People will go online and be like, I'm being ironic about this. This is just a joke. I only support white nationalism and Nazi points as a joke. But then they actually do. It's just like a litmus test. It's like, will people go along with me to this point? If it's a joke, okay, what if I get a little bit more serious and a little bit more serious until eventually people, are just full on out and out nationalists or whatever. So anyway, ultimately this did lead to some consequences, which is new and different.
Wild story. Wow.
I know, right? Let's see. I'm going to skip that one because it's a little bit niche and we have a big enough audience that this is actually worth digging into. Okay, so now on to the funner stuff. Today, Warner finally revealed their weird fighting game. It is truly bizarre.
Game director and co-founder here at Player First
It's called
Games.
Multiversus, by the
I,
way.
I did see
Terrible
this.
name.
At our new game,
No, you know what? It's a
Multiversus.
pun on Metaverse. They're trying to get ahead of it.
I-
Platform fighter that embodies everything.
Yeah, I
you
know.
Oh,
Steven
wow,
Universe,
there's
right?
stroke.
Remove the pain points.
Oh,
and brings in
Steven
some new
Universe.
ideas.
Adventure Time.
Multiversus emphasizes teamwork and social play with an ever-expanding, diverse cast of characters that you know and love.
Wow.
This is
People
our
in
Yeah.
chat
take
are
on
really
the
talking about
competitive
weeb stuff
platform
right
fighter.
now.
Cooperative,
Now, meanwhile,
deep combat
these are my
mechanics
favorite
across
anime,
multiple
chat.
platforms and
I'm a
free to
big
play.
fan of noted anime Steven Universe.
Everything is better with
And
your
of course,
friends.
everyone's favorite
And that's
anime,
upon one
Game of
emphasized across
Thrones.
our modes.
I
Special
personally know
too.
about Japanese culture and how important honor is.
Character
They
has
were
unique
just
moves
honoring
focused
the
on team play,
American
whether
people.
that's a smoke
Oh,
bomb
no.
to cover your team's
Wow,
movement,
that's awful.
Steven shielding his ally for extra defense.
Yeah, I know. Oh, yeah, Brittany H just said Ultra Instinct Shaggy. Yeah, he's
Or
canon
using
now.
Bugs Bunny's tunnel.
Yeah,
The better your teamwork, the better your chances are to win.
I mean,
We built
that's the
game
best news
from
of the
the
year, in
ground
my
up for
opinion,
teamwork and
is that
co-op
Ultra Instinct
to deliver
Shaggy is
more
finally
unique
canon.
experience that
We've been waiting
players
years
will
for this.
enjoy.
This is a
And for those
triumph.
of us who like to play solo, don't worry.
This is so
we
interesting
support that too.
because of copyright things, you can't have these characters in Super Smash.
Our roster
Mhm.
has some
Because
of the most
Nintendo
recognizable
doesn't even
characters. So bring them
partner
to life
enough
with
with
as close
these
to one-to-one
Yeah, he's
representation
just
companies.
People Republic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Visuals,
So
words,
this could be fun.
the music and more.
I don't know.
It's important to us.
I mean, it looks better than the Nickelodeon one, to be honest. The Nickelodeon one
Like Kevin
kind of
Conroy as
always
Batman.
looked a little bit janky. I don't know if anybody in chat has played the
In fact,
Nickelodeon fighting
we think
game,
you'll recognize a
but
lot
it's
of them.
rough. I feel like that game had a lot of hype behind it, and then came out, and people played it for one day, and they're like, oh.
Oh.
Excited
no.
to show you our takes.
But
on
yeah,
characters
Warner
from Tom and
Bros.
Jerry,
So I worked for
Star Wars.
CNN before this, which is owned by AT&T, which was was owned by AT&T.
Ultra
It was,
Shaggy.
and Warner Bros. Was owned by AT&T too. At this point, I don't even know anymore. But yeah, so I actually have talked to people who like worked on these games, and it's just like another one of those companies that has so much turmoil that I don't even know if
also means guilds and more social features.
you know. It doesn't really bode very well.
challenge
Like
other
the
guilds
types
with
of
roles,
stories
see
I've
who's
heard
really
from
ready for
the
a fight.
studio
We'll have
in particular,
leaderboards and other ways
and
to
you know
prove
like what
who's the
happened
best.
with Wizards
Remember the last
Unite.
time a DC played
There-
match?
Actually, no. There's like a
What
Harry
lag
Potter
affected
role-playing
us too.
game too.
Multiversus' goal is
right,
best in
right.
class online. We're investing a
Yeah,
lot
oh
into
no,
making the most responsive
yeah, someone in
gameplay
chat
in
just said
code.
it has voiceover, so it's already better than the Nickelodeon one. That's definitely true. Yeah, oh yeah. And then RX Hydro says, I think the Nick game is probably why they called out the voice acting specifically, or voice actors specifically in this trailer. As in to say, like, we got them, you don't.
Skins, and events
Wait,
throughout the
is
year
that
for doing events.
they have
With
Game
your
of
help, we
Thrones
want to grow
characters in
Multiversus
cartoon
to that
form?
form indeed. So whether
Yeah,
you want
because
to
they're
freeze all
like
your
part of the
foes at
same
once or
like
compete in esports,
company,
you'll
so
have
they
a
can
home
get
game.
anyone from HBO here.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
That's our
It
first
is
look
very
into
metaversey in
Multiversus.
that
We've
sense.
got more iconic characters and features to reveal.
Yeah,
Sign
almost
up at
reminds me of like
multiversus.com for a chance to participate in our
the
upcoming
trainings I had to
playtests.
go through, like
We wanna
security
hear your
trainings.
feedback.
At CNN, they would use the characters from HBO to like
Wow.
promote security. Yeah, the first glimpses of the metaverse.
Yeah, good lord. Oh man, yeah. Yes, Jonathan, you did see Shaggy power up like Goku. That's Ultra Instinct Shaggy. And if you want to be exposed to a world of memes, then you just go ahead and search the phrase Ultra Instinct Shaggy. And thank me later, because it's a real trip. But yeah, so let's see. Beyond that, actually, to make this kind of like, I'll save this one for last because it makes more sense to go right into this one, which is that in addition to this crossover, we also had another fun crossover this week, which is that Naruto is in Fortnite.
We've talked about that like last week even.
Yeah, but we only had like the logo at the time. Now we have the actual reality of the thing, and it sure is something.
Oh, man, Sasuke didn't even get one bowl of ramen.
No, he didn't. But Naruto does. How fun.
You know, I was supposed to have ramen today. Didn't work
Yeah.
out for me.
And you were supposed to play Fortnite with Naruto in it this week. So your entire week has been themed around this one thing.
You know
what?
what?
Thing, and you didn't do any of it.
There was a company called Activision Blizzard that kind of like swallowed up my entire week, but I don't know. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Wait, Acta who? What?
No.
Yeah, not familiar. Probably doesn't matter. But anyway, yeah. So like, in addition to being a very strange crossover that gives me a lot of feelings because I grew up with Naruto and like loved that series when I was a teen, and like seeing these characters in this particular setting and like so as Goose Comic said, it's Naruto with a gun, and oh, it definitely is. This is probably my this
it's so
amazing because you get this whole like, okay, wait for it though, we gotta have the build up because this is spectacular.
Okay.
So he rides in on the Ninetales fox.
Oh my god, and he's like kind of like wiggling as he goes.
This bit absolutely rules. All right, it's time for a jutsu, right?
Wow. Oh my god. Okay. This is the time to admit I've like memorized the fireball jutsu. I could probably do that, but that's like a Sasuke. But oh my god.
Jonathan just said, I'm going to defeat you with the power of friendship
like,
and the gun I found.
Wow.
And then he's doing like all these, again, like TikTok dances and stuff. And it's just like on one hand, I feel like of the series that you could pick for something for a crossover with Fortnite, like Naruto isn't the worst in terms of like art styles and stuff. But in terms of like, I just don't know how I feel about seeing like one narrative that I like grew up with as a kid that like was very particular in the story it was trying to tell and stuff, taken and turned into
wow, it's just so funny. I just love the editing for that too. Just the music. It's just like it's so nice and poetic and Japanese. Then you're like, bam. There weren't even guns back then. This was before the Industrial Revolution. I don't know.
I mean, well, Naruto takes place on its own. Please, Naruto takes place on a separate planet that's not Earth.
But there aren't. No. It's like an alternate Earth that would have the Industrial Revolution later, and not yet.
I don't know about that. Given where Boruto is gone, I don't know about that. But anyway, that's the other funny thing about this is that Boruto exists, and they're like, no, we're gonna do Naruto. No one cares about Boruto. Anyway,
Okay.
I love this meme. Sasuke, I might be out of chakra, but I ain't out of options.
Oh.
And then this is just given like So again, feel weird about seeing Naruto characters in this state, but cannot deny how entertaining it is. Like here's Naruto and Kakashi and some funny little cars.
No, this is great. I'm a huge fan.
And then it was not a mistake. And then let's see. Here's everybody just having a great time.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, it makes sense. There's multiple of them. They're clones, but
the Sasuke dance is so egregious that this trended on Twitter. Sasuke's name trended on Twitter the other day entirely because of this dance.
I saw that. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like he Justin just said would be so interesting for Washington Post to see the backroom story behind this collab. Wow, this turned into a Naruto lore stream. It did. No, here's the problem. I fell off actually like reading or watching Naruto like probably a decade ago, if not more. But the Facebook algorithm understands me well enough that it surfaces Naruto memes and Naruto pages to me like every 3 posts. It's just all Naruto stuff. So I've managed to catch up on Naruto entirely through memes and videos on Facebook. And as a result, am now like relatively kind of horrifyingly deep into it again. Like I got very sad because of a recent Boruto spoiler. It affected me for like a week, and I hate myself for that reason.
That's so sad. That's very sad for you. Quickly to respond to Justin, so like the way that these partnerships and like shake out, I actually talked to, I guess like head of marketing at Epic Games before, and how they like put these together. They really just like think about what's popular for kids, and then they work with them. Like Ariana Grande, they were like, we need a concert this year. Who has a huge following? Okay, Ariana does, and then reached out to them. Yeah, and so like that's how you have like I don't know Marvel and all of the different movie collabs and like Chris Nolan's like trailers, and then Naruto. I'm sure it like came out this way as well because of how many weebs there are.
Man, so many weebs, maybe too many weebs. But yeah, that's our final hit for the week. Going to dig into something that surprisingly isn't Naruto. I mean, again, I could just devote an entire stream to the weird Naruto thoughts I have at this point in my life. The memes get so strange so fast. There's one page that's dedicated to like people taking clips from Naruto out of context and making it evident that Naruto and Sasuke are in love. Whoa. It's been a long running thing. But anyway, it's time for Sega Cologne, which is not something that anybody saw coming. And yet here it is. So, I mean, like, you have the Yakuza one and the Shenmue one, which like kind of make a degree of sense. They're like set in these worlds where like you could imagine the characters in both those games wearing cologne. They probably would, especially like the main characters in Yakuza, like,
Oh yeah.
They're big time like Yakuza bosses, or like not bosses, but like they're important within that organization. They've got to, be presentable.
They have to smell good.
And like Rio from Shenmue, like, he's a cool young man. I'm sure that he like wears cologne. Then we have this one. One of these things is not like the other, and the one that isn't really isn't. So I have so many questions about this. The first one is, why are there citrus fruits next to it?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. What does Sonic smell like? Nobody's ever thought about that.
Well, now they have, and they made cologne about it. And they say, okay, so let's see. This is all question. Given the seal of approval from the famous Speedy Hedgehog himself, they're implying that Sonic is real, and he said yes to this.
Yes.
This cologne boasts an aroma of fresh citrus, a zing of grapefruit zest, an exotic lemon and lime, topped with the scene of the ocean breeze and chilled melon fade. Take pleasure in the rich bass tones of leather, suede, and cedar mixed with all that lemon. This fragrance is excellent for giving as a present to a loved one or yourself.
Okay. Well, okay. So I think realistically, Sonic would smell like sweat because he's been running for a very long time, and then later he was like, "I want lemonade," maybe. So that's where they were going with this, and maybe he was running by the beach. But other than that, I'm like, I don't know. He doesn't. He is like a who knows how old he is, right? But he's like a childlike figure that doesn't wear cologne, in my mind.
Well, I mean, also within all of that, you raised a very interesting question to me, one that I'd like to put to chat before we go. and this is really important. Does Sonic sweat? He is like, on one hand, he's a hedgehog, and I don't think hedgehogs sweat, as far as I know.
Oh, we need to like
But
actually interview some like biologists about this, and then oh wow, this is a
because I
great
think
idea.
I think that a creature like Sonic, a hyper high speed, theoretically furred mammal, would like combust and die if it didn't sweat. If it ran all the time at the speed Sonic goes at, because like even, cheetahs and things like that, they don't run for very long and they pant to release heat.
Okay.
Sonic does none of that. He just goes and goes and goes forever, and he doesn't even really seem to like get winded or breathe hard. So like either he's a biological impossibility or he like just sweats buckets and we never see that. He's just like constantly drenched. Maybe that's why he's blue.
Okay, I am trying to like search this up, but there are like no credible sources. But whether hedgehogs sweat or not, but I don't think they sweat very much, as what we can
Mhm.
say. So maybe just a little hint of sweat.
Wow. And now people there's a so earlier in chat, James Jackson was like, what do you mean implying that Sonic is real? And now someone's saying no, he doesn't sweat because he's not real. So we have like a strong contingent in chat who believes in
Oh
Sonic
no, are
and
we
another one who
fighting over
doesn't.
this?
Yeah,
Are
I
we?
mean, needless to say, none of y'all who don't believe in him are getting Christmas presents from Sonic this year. He's not coming to your house.
Also, did we just start like a Sonic war? Oh
We
well.
did.
That's too bad. I mean,
Yeah.
I do want to know what this smells like. I mean, some people on Twitter were like, "We have to smell like Sonic now," and maybe this will become like everyone just smells like Sonic from now on.
I
So
mean, if WaPo will comp it, I will review this. I will happily wear this for like a week and just lose all my friends.
yeah, I'm sure you could. And also, you chose violence today, says Goose Comics. Snowball fight. Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
that's right.
now that we've started a war that's continuing to go, wow, Sonic not real.
Uh,
Man,
you
this is rough.
you know, if you like got a hedgehog, it still wouldn't be blue, so you would have to spray paint it, and then that's probably like toxic. So I don't know,
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
that would definitely kill a hedgehog.
So,
Sonic smells like Powerade. That's an interesting theory. It wouldn't surprise me. He'd need electrolytes to replenish
oh,
everything he's losing while running that much.
maybe that's the concept behind this cologne. It's supposed to smell like Gatorade, or
Wait,
like smell like a drink.
maybe that's why Sonic is blue. I mean, Sonic has to be some sort of a mutant, and maybe like the mutation he has produces Powerade, a notably blue drink, and like that's what keeps him from overheating and keeps him
Mhm.
going and keeps him rich with electrolytes and also turns him blue.
Wow, I think you've solved it. And what about all his friends, like Knuckles?
I mean, they're just impossibilities. They're so impossible, in fact. So here's the big twist. Oh man, here's the Shyamalanian twist. So Sonic is real. Sonic is real, but everyone else are figments of his imagination. He's made up a lot of friends for himself who are physically impossible. They can't do the things that they're doing because, like, again, they just like combust and die. But Sonic is very lonely. He's very sad, and so
Yeah.
he imagined Tails and Knuckles and even Dr. Robotnik to give himself purpose in life. But in truth, he's all alone.
I mean that holds up, right? Like the very first games are him just running and
Uh-huh.
running, and
And that's him running from his problems.
so sad. Okay, I thought we were going
Mhm.
to like laugh at how nice he smells, but now we're just feeling sorry for him. Oh.
Wow, Ice Blue just said, "Is Nathan real?" To answer that question, no.
We have never yeah, we have never come to a conclusion about this, but we have said, "Who are you?"
Yeah, no. I'll just say that if you're asking like, have I ever been in the same room as Nathan? No, no,
Have
I've never.
you? Has
I can
Nathan
say
ever
no.
been in the same room as Nathan?
Exactly, and I can say no, so I must not be real.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a
Wow.
bummer. Oh well.
That's too bad.
Anyway, as I fade into non-existence, now that I've disproven my own existence.
Oh, cue video producer special effects. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, so cool. We need a bigger budget for this show so that people can just fade us out.
That's what we should request from Jeff Bezos. Yes, next time.
Jonathan just said, after that explanation, Nathan, I hope to God he is not real.
Oh boy.
Fair. Anyway, I think we are going to wrap up for today. It has been a great time. It's been wonderful having all of you. I'm so happy that so many of you stuck around. Become a wonderful chat. Anyway, we do this every week at this time. We always have different guests, different main topic, but same basic structure. And so, yeah, we always do it at 4 p.m. Eastern time every week. This has been Washington Post Story Mode. I'll get that right eventually.
Y'all should come back and talk about weeb stuff with us, and Sonic Real. How can we get Nathan to watch Succession? More Activision Blizzard stuff. I'm sure that will never go away, or at least for the next few months or weeks. And Twitch things and everything else.
Yeah. Anyway, I've been Nathan Grayson, one of your hosts, and Shannon.
Oh, well, are you going to say you're also Shannon? Please. I'm Shannon. I'm also signing off. Good night.
I'm everyone and no one. Everyone who's been here today, including Jason, was just a puppet I was controlling.
Oh, no.
From the beyond. Anyway, on that note, we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, and Halo tomorrow.